Okay, so to continue with the story, I can't go into details because I don't want to make good shooters think. If I went into details about what happened to my shot, you would all understand. You would be amazed. But because I don't want to go into details to make good shooters think, I'm not going to do that. So, but the gist of it is the very little details that I'm not afraid to tell people is I'm picking the ball off the rack. And because the rack's like this, I'm stepping forward and it's making me shoot my left foot in front of my right. Because the rack's right here, I'm stepping like this. It's making me shoot my left foot pointed forward. And my right foot like this because I'm going like this all the time. Now I'm going to get into details later about why my dad thought that that was correct. Why my dad thought that that was what I should be doing. And Kenny's going to get involved in that. And I'm going to get into that later. That's Malik's dad. But so I'm picking the ball off the rack. I'm doing this. And then so my dad's like, so it's making me shoot square. So I'm shooting square. Now my mom's going to my games, and my mom's like, now I remember like the 8th grade, I had a game against Brentwood where I scored over 30 points, but the high school, varsity coaches came to the game, and after the game, my dad was really upset. My dad was like, oh, he was like moping. Now people think like, you see my dad my whole life, he acted like he's too cool for school. Like he's just like, he'd just sit there and he'd watch, and my mom would watch, and everything was all good because I was the best. So everything was good. But, at this time, my shot was getting messed up because of the shoot-away machine. Now, I think that my dad will think it was because I was, starting to shoot overhead. That's what he probably thinks. But no, it was because of the shoot-away machine. I have videos of me shooting overhead before the shoot-away machine. My form is perfect. It's because and it's not just because of the shoot-away machine. It's because my dad messed up my shot, but I'll get into that. And I'll get into why I always say the shoot-away machine. It's because my grandpa came in. My grandpa's like, well, never blame. Never blame. Never, never complain. Never blame. Because my grandpa's like, you have to take responsibility for everything. So I never wanted to blame my dad. But again, I always thought that was like a communist thing. To like never blame and just accept. Just accept. As opposed to, sometimes people are to blame. And in this case, my dad was to blame. But my grandpa would be like, no, never blame. Because, your consciousness invites this stuff, basically. I always saw my grandpa's existential psychiatry as victim blaming. But anyways, my shot's messed up. So like this is the 8th grade. My mom goes to my game. My dad and my mom and the high school the varsity coaches come to the game. And then my dad after the game was moping, and my mom was like, "Why are you upset, Paul? Is it because Ryan shot really bad?" Like I said, that game I had over 30 points. Just imagine if my shot wasn't messed up because of the shooting machine. But my mom was like, "This is because Ryan played bad," and my dad was like, "Is it because he shot bad?" And my dad was like, "Ugh." So basically, my dad was upset because my shot was getting messed up. And it was messed up. It's because I was practicing wrong. Picking the ball off the rack was making me shoot with my left foot pointed forward. Whereas before, when I was the best shooter in the country, I'm not going to go into details, but it's about how you move into it. But to make a long story short, I would be catching the ball naturally, and my left foot would be pointed out, and my right foot would be pointed toward the basket, and I shoot like this. That was sideways. But now, because I'm picking the ball off the rack, I'm catching it, I'm picking the ball off the rack, and I'm going like this with my left foot pointed forward and my right foot pointed forward. So my shot was messed up at that point. Now, my shot did get good when I would pick the ball off the, and I'm going to show videos and show how my shot changed. Because before, I always shot, like this with my left foot out, my right foot pointed toward the basket. But then, once I got the shooting machine, my go-to shot was I'd pick the ball off the rack and I'd step with my right foot, then left foot. Before I'd always step on my left foot, right foot like this, but I would step on my right foot, left foot. But this was my go-to shot because look, if I did this, my right foot would be pointed toward the basket, my left foot would be pointed out. If I pick the ball off and I'm going like this, but when I pick the ball off the rack on the left side, I would step like this, and make my left foot point forward, my right foot like this, and I'd be shooting square. Now, as I said, my dad was like, Ryan, shoot sideways. He thought that shooting sideways was the answer. So my dad was like, pick the ball off the rack and then spin into it. And then it'll be sideways. And then he told me to put my left foot pointed forward and my right foot like this. So my dad completely messed up my shot. But anyways, I'll get to that later because that didn't happen yet. So at this point, my shot's completely messed up because I'm shooting square. And it's because of my dad. It's because of the shoot-away machine and my dad messed it up. But at this point, it's mainly a shoot-away machine. So then, but my dad, and I'll get into why my dad didn't know. And also I'll get into Kenny and all that stuff. But so my shot's messed up. And as I said, my mom goes to my first, I'm the starting point guard on varsity as a freshman. My mom goes to my first games. And my mom's like, it was so think about it. I'm the starting point guard on varsity as a freshman. My defense is great. My dribbling is great. Everything's great. my shot's messed up. So my mom goes, and now why would that be? My mom wanted to think, and I just talked to my mom yesterday, and I talked to her on the phone, and again, like it's hard to get a hold of her, but I'm like, Mom, do you think that I told her about the shoot away machine. I was like, Mom, I want to talk to my dad about the shoot away machine. She said, he's never gonna talk to you. And I said, do you think it was a shoot away machine? And Mom's like, no. And I'm like, Mom, what do you think what happened was I just couldn't handle the pressure, and then I fell apart? My mom's like, yes, that's what I think happened, because that's what my mom wants to think happened, but it's not what happened. So at this time, I'm a starting point guard varsity as a freshman. My mom goes to my game, and my mom was like, "You're playing terrible. You're shooting terrible. You're a shooter, Ryan. Shoot the ball. You're a shooter." She didn't know. I'm playing great. And my dad was like, "Marla, he's playing fine." Mom was like, "No, he's not. He's playing terrible." My dad was like, "No, he's playing fine," because I was a starting point guard, so my dad was happy. But the problem was my shot was messed up. Now, my mom wants to think it was because something happened to me, that I couldn't handle the pressure and I fell apart. I was starting point guard varsity as a freshman, won the CIF championship. No, I didn't fall apart. It was my shot that fell apart, and it wasn't because of me. If I wasn't practicing on the shoot away machine, if my dad didn't mess up my shot with the shoot away machine, I would have been the best. That's what coaches were always telling me, that I was going to be the best player in the country in high school. And it wasn't because of me. It was because of the shoot away machine. And it's because of my dad, and I'll get into that. But so I'm picking the ball off the rack, and I'm shooting bad because I'm how I'm picking the ball off the rack. It's messed up my shot. So my mom's like, "You're playing terrible. What's wrong with you? I'm too fucking embarrassed. You fucking suck now." My dad was like, "Marla, stop it. He's playing fine." So mom's like, "I'm not going to any more of his fucking games. I can't take it. He's terrible." So my mom stopped going to my games. She never went to my games again. This was my freshman year of high school. But my dad's still going to my games. My dad's happy because I'm starting point guard varsity as a freshman. But then, as I said, my sophomore year, I lost the starting spot. My shot's messed up. And also I had a sprained ankle, so I didn't play during the summer because I sprained my ankle. And my shot was messed up anyways. And another player took my spot. But I wasn't upset. But my dad was really upset. My dad's like, "I'm never going to go to any of your fucking games. I'm going to kill the coach if I go to your games." And my mom was like, What happened? My mom was going crazy. My dad was going crazy. I was fine. I just wanted to fix my shot. I was fine. But my dad was going crazy. So I'm shooting in the backyard of my dad. And my dad was looking at my shot. My dad was like, "I can't." He's like, "You fucking suck." He said, "It's no use. You're shooting square. It's no use." And I'm like, "Dad, well, help me." He's like, "No, it's no fucking use. You suck now. I give up. I can't help you anymore." He goes inside. This is the first time he beat me up. And I'm like, "Dad, come on." Because he's always helped me my whole life. I'm like, "Dad, come on, help me." And my dad's like, "No, I can't help you. You fucking suck now." And I'm like, "Dad, come on, please. 15 more minutes." And then my dad said, "You ask me again, I'm going to fuck you up." That's when he started beating me up. I'm like, "Come on, Dad, please. I need your help." Then he beat me up. That's when the abuse started to happen. Okay? So then, as I said, my grandpa comes in. And my grandpa was like, ended up getting my starting spot back, but my shots messed up, my games messed up because of my dad. So this is what ends up happening is my dad's in the backyard and he's telling me, "Okay, Ryan, you're shooting square." So then my dad's like, "You're shooting square." So I picked the ball off the rack and I'm going like this and I'm stepping with my feet pointed straight forward because I'm picking the ball off the rack. Now before, it's all about how you're moving it. Before I catch it and I'd be stepping out because of how I'm moving into it, I'm gonna automatically be going like this. I'm gonna catch it like this, and I'm gonna be shooting my left foot pointed out, my right foot toward the basket. But picking the ball off the rack, I'm in the games, I'm catching it, and I'm shooting like I'm practicing. If you look at the videos of me in the 9th grade, I'm catching the ball in the games, and I'm going like this, just like I'm picking the ball off the rack, just like I'm practicing. It's making me shoot my left foot in front. Now there is some players like Kobe will sometimes go like this, and he'll jump, but that's a very inaccurate shot. The best players, they'll be stepping with left foot out, or they'll dribble like this. And if you look at the videos of me when I was younger, I would dribble like this, and then you bring it to your left hand, so you could step with your left foot pointed out. You bring it to your left hand, and I can go to other details, but I want to make good shooters think. But anyways, my dad is having me in the backyard going like this all the time. So making me shoot my left foot in front of my right. And I didn't know that. So then my dad was like, "Okay, pick the ball off the rack and then put your right foot in front and put it toward the side and your left foot toward the basket and then shoot." So I'm in the backyard picking the ball off the rack, doing this. Whereas this is the exact opposite of what I did before. Before, I would have my left foot pointed out and my right foot toward the rim, and then I'd shoot. But then my dad told me, no, keep your left foot pointed forward because I'm picking the ball off the rack. You can't stick your left foot out. You're stepping like this. So keep your left foot pointed forward and spin, and then put your right foot toward the side and then shoot. So then I'm doing that. Did the exact opposite of what I did when I was the best shooter in the country. Did the exact opposite of what the best shooters do. So, in other words, my dad completely destroyed my shot. But then, so I'm trying to get my dad to fix it. So then my grandpa comes in though. And my dad would come out and he'd be like, Ryan, here. He'd give me passes. And I know that when he'd be giving me passes, I would start shooting a little better because I wouldn't be thinking. And I would start doing I would move into shots better. So I'd be doing things automatically. But then I'd go back to picking the ball off the rack and shooting. And it'd mess up my shot again. But my dad would be, I just fixed your shot. Why is your shooting bad again? He didn't realize if he would just been passing me the whole time, none of the problems would have happened. It was the shoot-away machine that was the problem. So he's like, oh, I can't. Every time I fix your shot, you go back to shooting square. My dad's losing his fucking mind. And he's getting mad at me. And I'm like, come on, Dad. Come on, help me. Because I'm unconscious. I was always unconscious. That's why I was the best. That's why I was the best, because I was so unconscious. So I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know it was a shoot-away rack. My dad's like, oh, you're shooting square. So my dad's losing his mind. And my dad's getting mad at me. And then I'm like, come on. And then he's like, I give up. I can't help you. Like, come on, Dad. Help me a little. And then he beat me up. Then my grandpa comes in. And like I said, my grandpa's like, Ryan, this is what he said. He's like, he doesn't know it. He's coming from Kauai. He's living in Kauai. Then he comes to Los Angeles. He doesn't know what's going on. He just makes assumptions. So he comes in and he says, this is completely normal. It's so normal. It's so common that high school boys get in conflicts with their dads because what high school boys want is independence. See, my grandpa's, I use the metaphor of like a hammer and a nail. That's what people say. Like he's a hammer, so he's going to see everything as nails. And he's a metapsychiatrist, existential metapsychiatrist. And existential metapsychiatry, their whole thing is like, be independent. And, don't, like I said, I always thought that my grandpa was a right-winger white supremacist because he's always like, be self-reliant. Be independent, be self-reliant. You do not, be self-reliant. You create your reality kind of thing, like your consciousness and what the most important thing is independence because, my grandpa would blame the Jews. He would say like the Jews, like I was always a communist Marxist. So I'd be like, yeah, the Jews were the good guys and the Egyptians were the bad guys and the Egyptians were like the white people and the Jews are like the black people and they're slaves and it's the evil white oppressors and the good slaves. But my grandpa inverted it, and that's why I always saw him as a fascist white supremacist, where I was a communist. And he'd be like, no, the Jews were slaves because they weren't in the flow, and it's almost like they invited that into their reality because, so my grandpa's like the complete opposite. So I was always anti-white, and I felt like my grandpa was pro-white. He's like, and he inverted it to make the slaves the bad guys, almost, in my opinion. That's the way I saw it. But anyways, so my grandpa's always like, in his opinion, the reason why the Israelites were slaves is because they didn't want independence, because they were dependent. They wanted to be dependent. They wanted slavery in a sense, kind of like what Kanye West said. Like, it seems like the blacks chose slavery. My grandpa would say they didn't choose it. It's their consciousness level. Your consciousness invites what you get into reality. So, but then I always saw my grandpa as a white supremacist, fascist. Then he blaming the victim. So my grandpa comes in, he's like, what Ryan really wants is independence. That's what Ryan really wants. He comes in, he doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't know that the shoot-away machine messed up my shot. He doesn't know any of that stuff. He just sees conflict between me and my dad. And he's like, oh, well, Ryan, but this is so normal. This is so natural. Ryan is in the age where he wants independence. It was the exact opposite. I didn't want independence. I needed help from my dad. And I didn't know the shoot-away machine was what was messing up my shot. So then... So then my grandpa goes, Ryan just wants independence. That's what he wants. And I'm like, but I don't know. It's too much for me to handle. I'm in high school. I'm getting abused by my dad. I don't know what's going on. But I'm like, Dad, can you help me with my shot? My dad would help me with my shot. It's no use. You fucking suck. He'd get mad. Then I'd be like, Dad, I need your help. Then the conflict would happen. My dad beat me up. My mom was on my dad's side. and then my grandpa's like, Ryan, your dad doesn't want to help you shoot. You have to accept bad calls. You know, you have to accept his calls. You know, if your dad says he doesn't want to shoot with you, you have to accept it. But I'm like, you know, what I noticed was whenever I would be playing good, like I'd have a good game, like my 10th grade year, I scored 3-pointers against OJ Mayo. At first, my dad was like, I'm never going to go to any of your games again. I'm never going to go to any of your games again. But then I had the 4 3-pointers against OJ Mayo. And then my dad, the next day, he comes to my game. So I'm like, whoa. Dad's just superficial. You know, he was like, at first he was like, I'm never going to go to your games because I'm going to kill the coach because he took your starting spot. But then I make 4 3-pointers and then my dad goes to my game. So I'm like, all my dad cares about is how I look. You know? And now that I made 4 3-pointers, my dad wants to come to my next game. So you know, I'm bringing that stuff up. My grandpa's like, no, that's not what happened. What happened later when I would tell my grandpa after college, I told my grandpa this. My grandpa's like, no, what happened was you were playing good, and so you were treated your dad good, and then your dad would go to your games. But when you were playing bad, you didn't treat your dad. You treated your dad bad, so he didn't go to your games. My grandpa always was a victim blamer, always making me into the bad guy. It's not true. My grandpa that's just his nature. His nature is always victim blaming. And I always saw his right-wing white supremacist, but it's fine. But, so, he made me the bad guy. But he's like, well, Ryan really wants his independence. And Ryan, you can't make things happen. If your dad doesn't want to shoot with you or go to your games, you have to just accept that. Everything is fine. You know, you have to have trust. Everything's going to work out in the universe. Martin Luther King said the arc of the universe bends toward justice. Everything is fine. Just have trust. And, you know, and you can't make things happen. You have to if your dad makes a call that he's not going to go to your game or he's not going to help you shoot, you just have to accept it. But then at the same time, my dad's like, you know, I'm shooting in the backyard. I go inside. My dad's like, Ryan, the best shooters shoot 500 shots a day. You need to go back out and shoot more. But I think that in my subconscious, I knew that the shoot away machine was messing up my shot. So I didn't want to shoot more. So my dad's trying to make me shoot more, but then he doesn't want to go out because he's like, it's no use. So it's like, it was a tragic situation. It was a tragic situation. So then there's abuse happening. My grandpa comes in, Ryan, you just have to accept it. You just have to accept bad calls. And then my grandpa's like, and he's telling my parents what Ryan really wants is independence. So my mom and dad are like, oh, good. Make him independent then. That's what Ryan really wants. All he really wants is independence. Get him out of our lives. And my grandpa's like, yes, that's what Ryan really wants is independence. But that's not what I wanted. I needed help from my dad. So then I go to live with my grandpa. My grandpa's like, yes, this is what you really want, Ryan. You want independence. I wanted to fix my shot was all I wanted. And my dad was the one who messed up my shot. If it wasn't for my dad messing up my shot, none of this would have happened. And that's what I'm trying to say. So I wanted to go back to my house. So then I'm calling my mom. I'm calling my mom on the phone like, Mom, you know, and I start living with my friend Afam. I'm living with my friend Afam. And I'm calling my mom on the phone. This is 12th grade. I'm like, Mom, can I please come back home? You know, because I want to see Dad and I want Dad to help me and stuff. And my mom's like, oh my God, you need to see your daddy? What are you, 17 years old, you fucking pussy? You're such a fucking pussy. I'm so embarrassed to have a pussy for a son. And I'm like, Mom, please, I want to come back home. And Mom's like, you're not coming back home, you fucking loser, you fucking pussy. You need your daddy? You're 17 years old, you little pussy. So I'm like, and I'd be like, Mom, can we please leave on a good note? I love you, Mom. I don't fucking love you. I fucking hate you. And then she'd hang up on me. And then I'd be distraught in my head. Because I'd be like, I want to leave on a good note. So I'd call my mom again. My mom like, no, you're not going to see your dad, fucking pussy. And then she'd hang up and then she'd block me. So this is what's going on in the 12th grade. So I'm being mentally and emotionally and physically abused. That's what I went through. The most terrible mental, emotional, and physical abuse you can fucking imagine, dude. So I'm trying to get back to my house. But my grandpa's like, well, what Ryan really wants is independence. So my mom's thinking in her mind, she's like, oh yeah, that's what Ryan really wants is independence. So make him independent, get him out of our lives. So, but I needed help. And I didn't know it was the shoot away machine that messed up my shot. And I didn't know that it was my dad who messed up my shot. And I felt that I needed my dad's help because my dad helped me my whole life. So I'll get more into this later. So that's the background. So at this point, my mom hates me. My dad hates me. My grandpa has very low respect for me. He thinks, Ryan, you're just trying to make things happen. You're not in the flow. And like I said, later I would tell my grandpa, after college, I would show my grandpa. I'd be like, hey, Grandpa, I figured out what happened. It was a shoot away machine. He'd be like, oh my God, you think it was a shoot away machine? What happened was you were playing against bigger, better players. You got frustrated. You took it out on your dad. And that's why your dad beat you up. That's not what happened. That's not what happened at all. What happened was my shot got messed up. My dad tried to fix it, told me to fix it wrong, and I wanted to fix my shot. It had nothing to do with any of that. But my grandpa would try to make me the bad guy. So my point is, this is where my mom and dad and grandpa got against me. And it never came back because they abused me. And in my mind, and later what I tried to say is like, yeah, they abused me, and people want to justify the abuse. And they can't tell themselves, hey, maybe we made a mistake. Maybe I fucked up and gave him the shoot away machine and told him how to shoot wrong and messed up his shot when he was a great shooter and he would have been spectacular. Maybe I screwed up. This is my dad. Maybe my dad screwed up, and maybe, we screwed up and we abused him, and it's criminal what we did to him. They don't want to admit that. That'd be too much for them. They have cognitive dissonance. They can't admit that the victim was not to blame and that they were animals and monsters. They can't do that. They have to say that I was the bad guy. And that's what happened. So I'm going to get more into that.